All right. Well, good morning, friends, family, my forever fans. I am Debbra Sweet, and welcome to Trailblazing TV. It is a glorious day here in Southern California. I'm so thrilled. We have amazing sunshine after a whole lot of rain. It is going to be a fantastic day. But the best part is that you're here with me, and I am super thrilled to share with you a dynamic woman that I have had the pleasure of getting to know over the last decade. And so I just want to dive right into this and welcome Sue Henry. Sue, thank you so much for being here with us today. I want to just have you tell us just a brief bit about who you are and what you do, because we're going to move right into this morning.
So I am Sue Henry, and thank you, Deborah. I have to tell you guys, if you're tuned in and you're watching Deborah, you are at the right place, and keep tabs on this woman because she is moving and you can move right along with her. But I'm Sue Henry. I am from Minnesota. And we and so Deborah and I know each other from another organization. I've been an international speaker, 6 grown kids, 6 adorable grandchildren. I have my own business where I teach women how to become a guest on podcasts and how to monetize those opportunities. And we are organic, grass-only dairy farmers. I've never learned how to milk cows. A good wife would learn that, but a smart wife knows better.
I love it. I love it. And so friends, I got to tell you, you have 2 talkers in the room with you. So Sue, this is going to be, we're going to have a lot of fun. And
yes, we are.
I know. I've been so joyed to get to know you over these years. You just have this spitfire and this spunk and this vibrancy about you that right from the get-go, when I started to hear about this woman, about you, right? And then I had the pleasure of meeting you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to truly get to know you. And you talk about Minnesota. I saw your post with you out on the tractor a couple of days ago. What were you doing? You were baling, was it baling hay, or were you?
No, not this. No, it's too cold to bale hay yet. Okay. No, I was out seeding pastures. So there's a couple of them. I was out seeding pastures, but then I was also out disking a field so we could replant it for hay and stuff. We're small farmers. We only run about 600 acres, but I drive tractor. I really enjoy that. But when it comes to the animals, I've seen too many wives learn how to milk, and then all of a sudden they're always in the barn. Sorry, not me.
Yeah, that's good. I think I'd let that. I've always talked about, well, I got kicked off the farm when I was young. My uncle's farm, I helped quickly ruin a batch of hay. But I really appreciate what you do. And, as far as the farming, but what I also really appreciate is what we're going to talk about. So friends, I want to just kind of give you a quick recap here too. Trailblazing TV, if this is your first time of tuning in, part of our mission is to help you clear the path so that you can move into your forever future with courage, confidence, clarity, and conviction. My heart, I'm on a mission to help create a thrival. A thrival is a revival of heart, soul, body, mind, and spirit. So what you say, how you act, who you are, and what you do are all in alignment, all in one accord, so that you can truly step into your strength, your true power, and be that person you've always wanted to be, so you can ultimately bring your gifts to the world and experience true joy. So why did you like that? That was a lot. That was off from the heart, girl. Okay. So let's talk about that. And Sue, I want to move right in, because what we're going to talk about with you, with who you are and what you do, that lines up with being trailblazing, right? So there are many people that step into being visible and using their words, using their voice to help deliver a message to, I'm going to say, heal the world or heal the people that they're meant to serve. And then there are other people that they've heard about the benefit and the power behind talking and getting on podcasts, but there's a fear that gets in the way. So I know that as the professional and the dynamic woman that you are, you have 3 tips that we're going to cover here today. So ladies and gentlemen, this applies to you too. I'm going to ask Sue, let's talk regardless of the platform. So I think the first thing I want to have you talk about, Sue, is can you explain what is the definition of platform? What does that mean? Because that's a unique word, and some of some of my viewers may not be clear on what that is. So can you explain what that is?
A platform is mainly where you basically share your message. So
Okay.
it could be like you're doing right now on your Trailblazing TV channel. It could be on Instagram, IGTV. It could be on YouTube, but it could also be in your Facebook Lives, in your blog posts, in the
Mm,
videos that you do. It could be where you're speaking actually on a stage or to a, a great big group, or to a smaller, more intimate group of maybe 40 or 50 people, or maybe smaller is what you consider more intimate. But I think that one of the things, and that would include podcasts, but I'm not talking about having your own event. I'm not talking about creating your own networking group so you have a place to talk, or about having your own podcast. I'm talking about how do you create a message so that instead of doing this tedious one at a time where you're talking to people, you can take your heart, your soul, your passion, and you can share that and light up many people at one
mm.
time.
That's
And
awesome.
that's what I love about the speaking.
That's awesome. And I like that too. I've always said that it's very efficient. And for those of you who, you've come to know me, I'm very high creative. I love to have a lot of crazy, different kind of fun, but I'm also very practical.
Yeah,
I swing on both sides of the teeter-totter, so to speak. And so the practical part is leveraging our time, right? Leveraging our time with our
yeah.
message and serving many. So, Sue, I know that one of the, there are many people that teach different elements of speaking, but you have a perspective that has to do with talking from the audience's point of view. You talk about we should all over them. Can you kind of explain that more?
So one of the things that I have seen throughout my speaking career, and whether I'm on the stage or whether I'm in the audience, is that I see people who are talking. They're more in love with their product or service than
Mm,
they are in love with serving and helping other people achieve their goals. And I think and that bothers me. And so when you speak from the audience's point of view, now all of a sudden you forget about you. So all of that fear and intimidation and anything trepidation that you might have disappears because you're so intent on serving from the heart. And I think that's a very feminine style of serving and selling, is that when you share from the audience's point of view, instead of saying, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, it's all about taking them on a journey. And
what would
it's
be an
not
example of
just,
that? Like, can you give do you have an example of that?
yeah. So let me just give me a second, because I've got it. For some reason, I've got this black ant and I don't want it crawling on my, where did it come from? We just had snow.
This is live and uncensored. There's no 7-second delay, everybody.
Baby,
So
it's
gotta watch.
100% real. So I think, so what I have found is when you talk to people,
Mhm,
and you know in advance what their dreams are. So I know one
mhm.
of your dreams is to have a bigger impact, Deb.
Yes.
And in order to have a bigger impact, it's about understanding who really wants your message and what they want to learn. Where are they? So it's not about pointing and saying, oh, go that way, go do that. And it's not about them meeting you where you already are. It's about taking those few steps back and meeting them where they are, then linking arms and taking them on the journey. And when you do that, then, so for instance, a client of mine, Julie, she's a life insurance agent. I mean, who wants to grow up and be a life insurance agent? But at any rate, so that's what she does. And one of the problems was is she wasn't able to connect with people because she was so ingrained with the corporate speak that she had gotten through all the trainings and the pamphlet and everything like that. And it was so what happened was I saw where she was at. So instead of saying, oh, run to catch up, I met her where she was at. We started talking about some of the things that she was already doing and how do we transition and pivot them in a way. So now all of a sudden she's talking about the needs of her clients, but not, oh, you don't love your family if you don't have life insurance, but it's
Right.
something totally different. And she had a unique story, which I think we'll talk about in a minute.
Mhm.
But it's about bringing that emotion in so that they know that you really care, so that you're talking with them, even if it's one-sided rather than you're talking at them.
I think that's huge. And I'm really glad you said that because, myself, I've invested many years in learning how to be a speaker. And there's an irony that comes with part of my story. I know as an adult, I can clearly look back. They say hindsight's 2020. And, I've been doing a lot of hindsight work lately as I'm continuing on my self-care. But the evidence for me being a words person was there from when I was little, right? I was always talking. In fact, one of my stories is third grade was one of the most rough years because they actually took my desk out of general population and stuck it right in front of the teacher's desk because evidently I was talking, right? So why I share that is that put me into a place, right? There was a belief system because of that and a few other things that all of a sudden I closed up like I developed a belief system around I shouldn't share, right? So
Right.
why I'm tying this in is that whole process. You mentioned it. When we start to engage in using speaking as a way to reach and serve many, and we're building our content. I love that you're talking about, in my words, I call it having a comfortable conversation that converts, right? I was trained hard sales, old school selling. And interestingly, the very first sales job I ever took, you ready? I seem to pick up the weirdest things, but I was licensed to sell accidental death and dismemberment insurance. Really glad that I didn't have a great manager. I never got in the field to practice and actually apply that one. But why this is relevant is I'm relating to what you're speaking about with our training, right? I was trained to speak the black and white words and I couldn't connect with it. And in the process of learning to be a speaker, that whole transition of what I'm leaning into here is fear. I had this natural talent of speaking that there was a belief system based upon other people's beliefs that made me feel like I shouldn't be talking or I wasn't supposed to talk, when inside I knew that was like, that's always just been part of my life, right? But when it came to being public speaking, that fear, that you tapped on that fear of, we put a lot of should-haves inside of our stories. And I think that is for those of you that are watching, if you are and have endeavored into using speaking, this is what Sue's talking about here of transitioning your conversation, shifting your perspective. This is a great time to look at your content to see, are you presenting from a place of fear, which often is kind of that push energy, right? That's that old school kind of masculine, we hide behind that push energy. But what you're talking about, Sue, is actually creating a conversation that allows us to engage with the audience so they really feel your genuine care.
I love to use the word embrace.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I want them to embrace the message and my hopes and my dreams for them. But I think when you talk about your desk being put next to the desk of the teacher, one of the things is that those of us who talk a lot, my company is Sue Henry Talks, and it's because no one gets a silent treatment from me. But I think that what happens is when we're told to shh, when we're told to be quiet, when we're constantly told that, I think we also develop this belief system that what we have to say isn't worthwhile and isn't important.
Yes,
right?
and that's part of what I moved through and I journeyed through. And yes, you spoke that eloquently. So I want to take a moment. We have some fans and friends and loved ones with us. Pam, thanks for being with us here today. I'm loving your engagement. Pam shared something that she picked up on what you and I were talking about. Successful speakers understand that it's all about the relationships. We focus on the connection with the audience rather than the sale. So yes, that's huge. That ties right into what we've just been talking about. And so I think that's a perfect time to segue. You mentioned stories. Now, storytelling, it's really interesting, and I'm being very transparent. As a songwriter, I write stories all the time in lyric format, right? Stories are easy. But when it comes to speaking and when we are utilizing our words as the delivery method for our message, tell us a little bit more about how do we know what stories we should use, and how do we engage the audience so that, again, it's not one-sided, us at them, but more importantly, that the audience is in with us. How do we move our audience in to our conversation? Because I know this is a huge tip.
I think that, first of all, our stories, we don't need to be telling stories. We need to be inviting them in so they feel like they're part of the story. And we do that with our words and our emotions, you know, our voice inflections and all those types of things. And so there's two different stories. There's our story, and then there's the story of other people that we've worked with or that we've heard. Now, for most people, it's pretty easy to see somebody that we've helped and be able to bring the emotion into it. You know, and I'll give you an example of that in a minute, but I think the harder part is to tell your own story. So I'm going to go back to Julie, the life insurance agent. So
Okay.
she was going to speak at an event, and she knew that, and she was part of this organization, American Business Women's Association. And so what it was is that every month, one of the members would do the speaking. And so it was her turn to do the speaking. And it had been a couple of years since she spoke, and she did before, like what her company had suggested, you know, the charts and the graphs and, you know, all the stuff that doesn't, you know, everybody's eyes glaze over. And so she came, well, seriously, and everybody, you know, and so anyway, she came to me, she said, Sue, I don't want to go through that again. That was painful, seeing that they watched me and listened because they liked me, but you could tell they'd rather be anyplace else. She said, I don't want to do that. And I said, you know, Julie, I got to tell you, you're in your 30s, you're gorgeous, no children, never married. What in the world made you decide to become a life insurance agent? I mean, seriously. And so she told me her story. She said, well, when I was a little girl, my mom died after a battle with cancer. And because my parents had life insurance, we got to keep the house.
That's huge.
There's no emotional impact, though. So what I did, so engaging in the emotional is all about bringing in that emotion and embellishing the story, not with a lie, but with the emotions. So I worked with her and asked a lot of questions. And so then what we did was we changed her story. So instead of her having a bio read, she shared her own story. So she got up in the front and she said, you know, you're probably wondering why I became a life insurance agent, because I mean, who, you know, when you're 5 years old and they say, what do you want to do? And you go, I want to be a life insurance agent. I mean, said no one ever. And she says, but when I was 5 years old, or when I was 10 years old, my mom died after a long battle with cancer. We came home from the funeral and I was devastated, and I went into my room and my brother went into his room, and I just sat there, and even though I knew my mom didn't have pain anymore and she was in a better place, my heart was breaking. And I thought, well, maybe if I go in and have my dad hold me, maybe I'll feel a little bit better. So I left my room and I was walking up the hall toward the kitchen, and I heard my grandpa say to my dad, son, if you and the kids need to move in with us while you get your affairs in order, you sell the house, do whatever else you need to, you and the kids are welcome to stay as long as you want. She said, my heart stopped. There across from me was the bedroom where my mom laid when she was sick. And at first she would have us come in and she would tell us all of these wonderful stories, so we would remember her after she was gone. And then when she was too sick, she would have us read to her and tell her stories about our day. And sometimes we made things up just to bring a smile to her face. And this is the closet where I could open the door and I could smell the perfume on the clothes she used to wear before she got sick. And the kitchen is where she built memories, where we made cookies together and we did all these fun things. And I was just about to run in and tell Dad, no, you can't sell this house, when my dad said, it's okay, we've got life insurance. There's enough to pay off the mortgage, all the other bills, and still have money to put aside for the kids' college funds.
Wow.
That's why I sell insurance.
That is powerful.
Same story.
That is powerful. Yeah, that's totally black and white, day and night difference. So
there was no guilt,
no.
but 9 women booked appointments and 7 bought life insurance.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if I relate to that story because of, situation that I went through in my family, but wow, just, that is truly black and white difference. So with that, and I'm asking because, you and I've talked, but I don't know all the details of what you do, right? We evolve a lot. So in your day to day and how you serve your clients with Sue Henry Talks, do you coach and walk your clients through? Is that part of the process that you do with your
It
clients?
is.
Okay.
It is because you're developing your own story builds that rapport and that relatability, but it also engages people emotionally. So now all of a sudden you're on a level playing field, and they're going to be more open and responsive to what you have to say, and that will trigger things so that if they're interested in moving forward, they will. Whereas without it, they may hear it and think, oh, I should do that someday, but there's nothing compelling them, and emotion is what compels.
And that makes total sense. What you're talking about is transitioning in a way so that we're connecting the dots. You're trailblazing. You're leading
Right,
them through
right.
the emotional process so that they understand that you could potentially be that right fit. So actually, with that, I think you've shared with me before that with that kind of approach, that type of ability to connect with and emote, that you have another tip on how we can utilize a speaking platform to actually create a stampede of hot prospects that can opt in for our offers. And I love that because that's farming 101.
Well,
I love
yeah, have you ever had to chase cattle before? You know what a
I have.
stampede
I
is,
have. That's what I was
Yeah, yeah.
Googling.
So,
Yeah.
so it's one thing, because here's the thing. I don't care whatever platform you were speaking on, 9 times, unless it's your own, 9 times out of 10, you were not allowed to sell. You were not, and
It's
it's not
true.
good practice because 70% of the people who are interested someday in what you have to sell aren't interested in buying it right then and there. So our job, as I see it, when we're speaking from the stage, is to engage people emotionally, pique their interest, their curiosity, and start feeding breadcrumbs of information that helps us to build that rapport, to build that trust, where we're sharing good content, where we're educating them along the way, having some fun. So it's more of edutainment, not just, dry stuff, because without fun, life's a four-letter word, right? And so and so it's all about that. So when you bring out your talking points and you create your talk, it needs to be cohesive and consistent with what your free offer is. And your free offer needs to be the what's, not the hows. And I usually teach that you want 10 to 15 tips in your free offer of the what's, not the hows. Shouldn't be any longer than 3 pages. But then what happens is, and this is a mistake a lot of people make, is they'll speak, then they have this free offer. Their free offer is 3 points, and they've already shared that from the stage. So then when somebody opts into it, now they're on an automated email list. The information is different. It doesn't, it loses. It's not like a pitch, like a, what do you call it, a bait and switch, but it doesn't have the same emotion and everything. So when you've got an offer where everything is kind of consistent in your tips, and then you continue to dive deeper into each of those tips as you move forward, now you've got a purpose for your email sequence. Now you've got content for your email sequence. Now you're going to just take each email on those tips and go deeper, share a story, testimonials, examples, all of those different kinds of things, while you're nurturing, while you're educating, while you're getting them to know you personally and building that rapport. And every email then has an ask, but an ask doesn't mean that you have that you're asking them for money. What we want to do is condition them to know that we're going to ask. So the first few may be, okay, grab a pen and paper. When you read this, what were the first things that came to your mind? Blah, blah, blah. The second one might be this, a third one might be this. And so by the time, so what happens is that in my program, it's where usually you don't start seeing people buying until the fifth or sixth email goes out in a set of 10. And it's because we need to continue to build that relationship from the stage, but keep our conversation consistent so they don't feel like they got lost along the way.
That makes a lot of sense. That's very, very, very powerful. So, Sue, I didn't ask you this before we prepped for today, but do you have an offer for my audience? Is there something,
Oh,
I'm assuming that you do, so I'd love to have you share that. So this has
so,
been really
yeah.
beneficial. Yeah.
So right now, since the first of the year, I've really decided to focus on helping women get on podcasts because you don't have to travel. They're pre-recorded, so you can, if you've got it 9 to 5, if you've got kids, all this, you've got more flexibility. If you're having a bad day, hair day, and you're on a podcast, nobody's going to see it, which is okay, especially since we can't get our hair and nails done right at this point, right?
Right.
And so what I did was I've got 4 steps to get on a podcast. So they're simple, easy to do steps. So if you go to SueHenryTalks.com/podcast -4 steps, and that will get you the free offer, and it's a PDF you just download, and it'll give you 4 simple tips that can get you started moving in that direction if in fact you're interested in taking your message to many instead of one at a time.
I love that. And for, friends that are with us here today, I'll make sure that you get that link in our content, in our comments below, so that you can connect up with Sue, because this is really powerful. And, right now, especially with the current condition that we're in, with more and more people realizing that, one, they can work virtually, 2, many have to work virtually. This is a great way to gain knowledge and a skill set. So when we go and we move back into what will be the new norm, you're still empowered in this space. You can choose to apply this in any economic circumstance. And what Sue's talking about, this is lifetime of skill building. So Sue, I really appreciate the time here. I think this is, even for myself, it's been really beneficial. So any last thoughts in closing that you'd like to share?
Yeah, there is one. So the Podcast Trends Report 2019, it's this huge survey that went out to tons of people. You may not realize how popular podcasts are if you don't listen to them. But in this survey of the respondents who replied, out of thousands and thousands and thousands, 55.6% of respondents said that they bought a product or service that they heard about on a podcast.
Wow.
My friends, that's why you want to be on podcasts, and do it the right way.
That is huge.
That is huge.
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely huge. Okay. Woo. All right. Well, lovely. Thank you so much, Sue, for being here. And friends, family, I want to acknowledge, hi, Julie, thanks for stepping in. For those of you who have joined us today, if you have been, or you've been thinking about utilizing your words, speaking, connecting, podcasts, things like that, make sure you connect up with Sue. She's very dynamic. And I hope that you found this today just as impactful in knowledge as I was hoping it would be, and how I feel it is. So with that, remember, friends, you are amazing. You are wanted. You are needed. You've been given special gifts because the world needs you. It needs your voice. It needs your vision. So I encourage you, trailblaze, step into your true power, your true strength, and as always, rock on. All right. Thank you. Love y'all.
Thank you. So glad you could join us.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate you being here. Okay. And